Welcome into the Big Little Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. NFL Week 5 is over. College football Week 6 is also over. We had a great week of football. I think this was I texted you earlier this week. I said this was the best weekend of football I think we've had so far this year.
Best weekend of football by far, Patrick. I'm fired up, dude. Is it just talking football has got me excited this week.
Also, LeBron, decision part 2. Don't know what that could mean.
What's going to happen? Is he going to retire? Is he not going to retire?
Have you watched any NBA preseason so far?
I caught like 30 seconds of the Lakers Warriors game yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
You haven't made any bets?
No, I have not.
What about playoff baseball?
Playoff baseball. I've been watching a lot of playoff baseball. Go Blue Jays.
As more of a casual, isn't it kind of like awful that they have like a 1:00 playoff game on a Tuesday?
No, not at all. That's what makes playoff baseball. They have 12 o'clock games on random Thursdays every single week. So a playoff game at that time is pretty there's no other way to do it. Like they can't formulate the playoffs any other way.
But they didn't have any games on Friday when they didn't really have much competition, though. And so that's what I was thinking, is just that if you have the games during the middle of the day on like Monday through Thursday, you might as well be able to take advantage of the Friday slate, because I didn't think that they had any games specific on Friday. I don't know. I think I saw that across my feed. It looks like you're checking me right now. So like you could tell me if I'm wrong or not. Am I wrong?
Yes, you are wrong. They didn't have any games on Friday, but it was because the divisional series started. All the other series ended. The wild card series had ended.
Yeah, I feel like that should be a scheduling thing. They didn't have any games on Friday then?
No, but they had games Tuesday through Thursday.
But you said I was wrong.
Okay, yeah, you weren't wrong. But you were wrong about the.
I'm saying you got a schedule for that. Like, get ready. I don't know. That was just my thinking of it. Okay. Anyways, we're going to talk about football today. We're going to get into basketball eventually, and if LeBron announces that it's going to be his last year, we're definitely going to talk about that. NFL Week 5 winners and losers. Andrew, give me your losers.
Give me your losers. That is what I want to hear. We can start it. We can start that over.
NFL Week 5 winners and losers. Andrew, give me your winners.
My winners are the Broncos and Texans this weekend. First of all, the Broncos go on the road to Philadelphia and get a huge win for their program. Just in general, they come off of a game against the Bengals where they're just kind of beating a team when they're down, but the Eagles are the true test of the NFL at this point, because they came into the day as one of the only undefeated teams left, a day that ended with no undefeated teams. But yeah, the Eagles were one of the best teams, or are one of the best teams in the NFL, defending Super Bowl champions. So the Broncos came in with some offensive struggles just during the course of this year. Patrick Surtain hadn't played to the level in which you'd expect him to play coming off a Defensive Player of the Year performance, and they came out slow, but they were able to come back in the second half and fully take over that game and eventually win it. So Broncos are definitely one of my winners, and then the Texans. They just beat up on a Ravens team that is reeling at this point, but this is the best their offense has looked all season long, which is really good for a Texans fan. It looks like they have a chance at the AFC South again, which is like probably their only, maybe not their only way to get into the playoffs. The AFC looks really weak this year, but just in general, you've seen a lot from the Texans defense this year. I think they came into that game and they probably left that game as the number one scoring defense in the NFL, and you just weren't seeing enough from their offense. Their offense was really clicking on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the Eagles are having trouble right now putting together a full game of football. They've gotten a lot of teams' best shots, though. You know, they played the Cowboys, Chiefs, Rams, Bucks, Broncos. I think that's 5. That could be 5 playoff teams. I mean, in the Cowboys fringe, I'll give you that. But the other 4, definitely. And you've got a couple division winners probably in that group as well, you know, depending on who wins. Broncos, Chiefs, maybe it's the Chargers in that division, but you definitely got a few. So I let the Eagles off the hook a little bit. I like you mentioned in the Broncos, they've lost their 2 games by a total of 4 points. They pretty much, you can argue it. Maybe they have that Colts game too. Maybe they should have had it. So I've been really impressed with the Broncos, and then just being able to come back. That's great for them. Bo Nix looking good too. The Texans, the offense is looking good. I need to see it a little bit more consistently. I think the Ravens are just in a really, really bad spot. I mean, shoot, you talk about I'm going to talk about the Bengals later in this segment, but like if you talk about a team that needs their starting quarterback to come back, I think it's definitely the Ravens. Harbaugh, man, it's looking pretty bad as far as like, I think some of the fans are turning on him. Sometimes you need a new voice in the building. I'm not saying he's going to get fired. I've seen that. I've seen that. A lot of people were bringing up like the time between like, the end of Joe Flacco and Lamar. And there were some kind of rough years there for the Ravens. So just keeping an eye on that. But it's a good win for the Texans and definitely a good win for the Broncos. I'll go into my winners. The Patriots. Everybody, Drake May, we're forgetting, had some Patrick Mahomes-esque kind of comparisons coming out of college. Like he can make some throws that you would be surprised at. And he can throw
He
on
also
the
had some
run.
Mitchell
He can make
Trubisky
plays.
allegations too.
He can, huh? Oh,
He
yeah,
also
he
had-
did have those. He did have those. I think white guy North Carolina vibes were tough for him to get away from, to distance himself from, but I think he's doing it. I really thought it was a good win. It's a divisional game, and the Bills play, they let the Saints hang around, and the Saints actually were up, I think, in the second half at some point during that game last week. So they were kind of looked like they were maybe due for a loss, and it's a divisional game. So I'll give you that. But good win for the Patriots, and then the Bucks, man. A win is a win is a win. I don't care how it happens. If you win these games in the NFL, there's something to be said about that. I think that their late game ability could potentially position themselves to not be the worst division winner in the NFC. And that, in my opinion, really helps them in the playoffs. Obviously, you already have that home field advantage when you are a division winner, but looking further ahead, if they can avoid one of the better non-division winners in that opening round, I think that gives them a good shot at making the divisional. And at that point, I think they match up pretty well against a lot of the teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. The Bucks are definitely one of those teams that have the ability to come back late in a game and make it a game, if not win the game. And yeah, the Bucks, just every single win this year for them has just been intense and come out down to the last minute. But the Seahawks looked a lot better than they probably should have coming into the season. At least a lot of people were projecting them to be a little bit worse than they are right now. Sam Darnold has looked really good. JSN has just been an absolute star this year. So being able to hold off that attack, obviously their defense didn't look that good. Neither defense did. But just to be able to go back and forth with a team that was clicking on offense on all cylinders on the other side of the field, and at some point just have their stars like shine as well. Emeka Egbuka looks really good this year, and just in general, that offense, even without Mike Evans and for the first part of the season, Chris Godwin has been clicking all season long. So I am definitely interested to see what the Bucks are going to be doing come postseason. I think I'm a lot higher on them at this point than I was going into the season.
All right, I'll move into my losers first. The Chargers now dropping 2 games in a row. Just a good start to this season. Good win over the Broncos. Good opening week win against the Chiefs. But now dropping 2 games. They look like they had some coaching issues and stuff like that this game. Washington, in my opinion, isn't as good as they were last year. And I was really thinking that the Chargers were turning a corner. Now they're 3-2. That's tough. That's not a... It's a fine loss. I still think the Commanders can definitely are probably going to make the playoffs, and they're a good team, but would have liked to see the Chargers pull this one out, and then they lost by 17 points. So that was rough. And then I see that you don't have the Bengals on here as a loser, just looking a little bit ahead. I'm going to package the Bengals and the Ravens, the 2 teams at the bottom of the AFC North that are in desperate need of their starting quarterback to come back. Both of these teams over the next couple of weeks, if they cannot get wins, or if, I don't know Lamar's timeline off the top of my head. If they both lose their next 2 games, I think that they're probably eliminated from the playoffs. Like, I just don't see a realistic opportunity for them to stack wins and make it to the postseason, even if they get their guys back, because I just am not anticipating them to then run the table. So
yeah,
that was rough. It just, the way that it looked for both of them this past week was really bad.
Yeah, coming from a 1-4 start is always going to be tough to make the playoffs, which is the Ravens' aspirations at the very least at the start of every single season. And the Bengals, I don't think there's a realistic way to make the playoffs at this point. Joe Burrow is going to be out for multiple months, and unless they trade for somebody, there's just no possible way that they're getting into the playoffs with Jake Browning. Yeah, the Ravens definitely have a shot with Lamar coming back, but yeah, they can't really afford to drop any more games. Their schedule ahead still isn't the easiest one in the world. But I mean, as for the Chargers, they play the Dolphins this week, so chalk that up to be another loss for them. So they're going to be reeling after these next couple weeks, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we'll see how the Chargers do going forward. And then for my personal Losers or winners?
Losers.
Losers.
We flipped it.
Yeah. The Cardinals and Giants. The Cardinals genuinely had one of the worst losses I've ever seen in my life. Starting off with the Kyler Murray fumble in the red zone, not Kyler Murray fumble, the missed snap, essentially the center snapping into him when he wasn't ready, and then the Titans falling on it, and then Amari DiMercato, which how is this even still happening in the NFL? Everyone says it, but it's like has to be reiterated as many times as it needs to be because it still happens. Somehow he fumbles at the like half-inch line. If not, he probably scored, but I don't really care if he scored or not. Like, that's got to be a lesson that has got to be taught. Like, you just never give up the ball before you score, especially in a game that you're just trying to seal away. Like, you get the run that you needed. They were just trying to chew clock in the fourth quarter. You get the run you needed. You bust one open, and he fumbles at the half. Yeah, he fumbles at the half-inch line, which is super unfortunate. The Titans end up coming all the way back from 21-6 and winning that football game. They missed the extra point to make it a one-score game and somehow still scored twice more. Calvin Ridley had a 130 yards in this game, which was absolutely insane. 50-yard catch to put them in field goal range, and then there was a couple runs to seal that game. In general, I just don't know what happened in that game. Like, it actually is mind-boggling to me because they weren't throwing the ball in the second half, and I understand wanting to run the clock off time off the clock, but this is like a situation where Kyler Murray is still a young-ish quarterback. You want to put him in a situation where you have to go out and just seal a game, and they didn't put it in his hands at all. And it's the Titans, so it's a very low risk, high reward situation. You get him those valuable reps, and you just assume the Titans won't come back on you. But they literally just handed them the ball. They ran the ball like 3 straight drives, gave it back to them. Super terrible to watch. Sorry, I went on a Cardinals rant. And then the Giants, I have zero belief in Jackson Dart. Unfortunately, I'm so sorry. I just don't see it. And he could be so good. And I will completely take this back, but I don't think he's going to be the guy to save Brian Dable's job. And they have a hard schedule moving forward. And this was supposed to be their easy win, and they couldn't do it this weekend. And it's not that they couldn't do it. They made a Saints team that was getting blown out the week before look halfway decent. And then it just did not look good for the Giants at all on either side of the ball, really. Like, this defense has been good this season. I should have shut the Saints offense down. And then coming up, they have the Eagles, the Broncos, the Eagles again, the 49ers, the Bears, the Packers, the Lions, and then they play the Patriots, who are probably a playoff team at this point, the Commanders. Just the whole rest of their schedule, like, it's going to be hard to chalk up any sort of wins. So the fact that they couldn't get it done against the Saints is really, really foreboding for them.
So I have a different perspective, I think, on the Giants, just because I floated this out there when they announced that Jackson Dart was going to be the starter. And I said, just like thinking, just when we were just speaking, throwing stuff at the wall, talking out loud and everything like that, or thinking out loud, I should say, rather, I was like, you know what, they might just win the game against the Chargers and lose the game against the Saints. Like, and that's why my argument was like, just throw them out there and see what happens. So I'm a little bit like cautious whenever it comes to making a conclusion like that. Brian Daboll definitely could get fired, though. And then the Scatterboo fumble was really, really bad. The fumble 6 for them just changed that game completely. So I don't think it's all on Jackson Dart, but I see where you're coming from with that. Not too much pushback, but just a little bit. And then I think you said everything for the Cardinals. I just wanted to add that this is a loss that derails a season. They have coming up in this order: Colts, Packers, Cowboys, Seahawks, 49ers, Jags, Bucks, Rams, Texans. Good luck. Yeah, that's the case for the Cardinals. This season's it's over for them. So, all right, let's move into the biggest takeaways from college football week 6. We got a lot to talk about here, but let's start with Texas and Penn State. Both top 10 teams fell out of the rankings. Some pretty bad losses in that case. I think Penn State's was worse than Texas's, because I got some respect for Florida. But initial thoughts on that falling out of the rankings?
Yeah, I thought it was a shock that Texas fell out of the rankings just from starting at number 9 and losing to a Florida team that was within the top 15 coming into the season by that same AP poll. Like, I think that is just such a drastic switch up. And I from week to week, it is going to be super drastic. I feel like some of our opinions even sway pretty drastically, but just in general, like falling 16 spots, 17 out of the rankings, and wherever they're at, it is just so dramatic. A home SEC loss versus a Florida team that still does talent they haven't been playing well the last couple weeks, right? They lost to USF, they lost to Miami, they lost to LSU, but still, like, it's a Florida Gators team that has been playing hard at the very least. And DJ Lagway finally found what he was supposed to be this season. He had a half decent game, and that defense still played well. Like, it's not like that defense has been talked about as the hardest playing unit on that team for a little bit now. So Texas losing on the road and dropping 16 spots is just a little bit drastic for me, just because their 2 losses are against a team that was in the top 15 at the start of the season, and then a team that is the number 1 team in the nation as of right now. So I think it's just a little bit harsh, but I see where they're coming from, and Texas has a hard schedule ahead. So it might have happened either way, but we'll see where they go from here.
So yeah, I think I'll happily take a little bit of credit, half credit at least, on this Florida Texas game. I didn't choose Florida to win this game, but I have been the one who, after every single week, I'm saying, like, this Florida team they're still playing for Billy Napier, and that defense is really good. And Texas, man, with Arch Manning, this season's going to be lost. I don't know if they're going to figure it out this year, and that's just so unfortunate for them and everything that it was supposed to be with Steve Sarkisian and all of them. They were going to potentially be a playoff team. I think I picked them to win the SEC preseason. Out of the question now. They're not going to be able to figure it out. But I was a little bit shocked that they fell completely out, just because their other loss is against Ohio State, and the Texas defense is really good. For Penn State, they were down a good portion of the game against Oregon. And I know they came back, OT thriller, everything like that. But this UCLA loss, even though I give them credit, a good quality loss against Oregon, that UCLA loss is one of the most shocking I think I have seen in recent memory, because Penn State, like, they're coming off a loss. Yes, they're going on the road. I just didn't ever even see this coming at all. I don't even know what the opening spread was for this game, but oh my goodness, like, we were talking about UCLA going winless, and it seemed like a little far-fetched, initially when you think about it, but then you take a look at their schedule and you're like, yeah, it could happen. So that was crazy. I agree with Penn State falling out of the rankings at that point. I wasn't high on them initially either, and they don't really have anything to show for it win-wise anyway. So I was okay with that. Texas, I'd put them a notch ahead of Penn State, but I mean, they're both just 2 peas in a pod. They deserve to go out, and Florida State still deserve to be ranked, which I had seen a lot of other people talk about. The difference between Florida State and those other teams is that Florida State has a ranked win against Alabama, who's playing really well. So that's where I did draw a distinction. So I was glad that Florida State remained in the rankings. Just brought up Alabama. They beat Vanderbilt 30-14. Good handling of a decent SEC team there. What are we thinking about Bama? What do we think about Vanderbilt? Bama's got Missouri coming up this week too.
Yeah, so I think this is another win that Bama stacks that could look good on the resume moving forward. I think that Vanderbilt team is just as good as they played. Like, that this game was a close game for an extended period of time. Diego Pavia kept them in it in the first half, and it kind of just like got away from them in the second half. And that last second touchdown made it look a little bit farther than it actually was. Vanderbilt played a really hard game, especially on the road in Tuscaloosa. Like, for what this game, like, there was like quotes from like Ryan Williams at the beginning of the season, like he went on John Gruden's podcast and he was like, this year we're going to smash like an ant with a sledgehammer or something like that. Like, he was like, and I don't know, just everything that happened last year, you'd think that this would have been a bigger blowout if Bama was going to win, and Vanderbilt still stayed in there. So I think that this is a quality loss from Vanderbilt's side. From the Alabama side, you're stacking wins, you're stacking confidence. You come off a win where you beat Georgia, who hadn't lost at home in 33 straight games, and then you get a win at home versus Vanderbilt, even going into Missouri game versus a team that's not number 14 in the country, and they are also undefeated, or not also undefeated. They are undefeated. Alabama's not. I think that this gives you enough of a boost to kind of not breeze past them, but I don't see a world in which Alabama lose that game, even though it's another top 15 matchup. And I think this is good for that whole program, like, because everybody, especially after that FSU loss, people weren't sure about what FSU was going to be. Like, people were like calling for Kalen DeBoer's job at some point. We were even saying that like he was definitely his seat was definitely hot going out of week 2, but I think he silenced a lot of that. And Ty Simpson looks really good, so that whole program is back to being on the up, I guess.
Yeah, Ty Simpson. I think I saw somebody say if Ty Simpson, if his name was Ty Manning or something, we would be wrapping up the Heisman race right now. Like, he's been really good. I'll just talk about Alabama Mizzou for a second. I'm not buying Missouri whatsoever. I'm going to have to see them win one of these bigger SEC games before I ever get on the hype train. Them being at 14 feels like it was last year and the year before that, if you will. And it'll probably be the highest point that they get to this year. I don't think that. I mean, maybe they rattle off wins against Auburn and Vandy, but I think they run into Texas A&M, and wherever they end up being during that game will be the highest that they end up going. I respect them. Their offense looks good. Got the transfer QB, got all of the pieces, got the ingredients, but I'm gonna need to see it first. I'm just being what? I'm being so serious. Like I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't think this game is gonna be close. Alabama -2.5. I am smashing that all day long.
Yeah,
There's no shot. Alabama by 2 touchdowns, bro. Like, what are we talking about here?
Okay.
I'm sorry. I think Alabama's a good team. Also, I'm glad that they're now ahead of Georgia. I know there was a little bit of like, it's weird whenever you like get in the rankings and Georgia's at the time, like what, 3-1 or whatever. And Alabama's 3-1 as well. But the head-to-head, Alabama wins, but Alabama lost to Florida State. So there was a little bit of a funky move around there, and Florida State lost to Virginia. I'm glad that figured itself out. Alabama jumped ahead of Georgia in the AP poll too. I think that was a good touch to the end of the weekend as well.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that the Miami reshuffling back to number 2 was well warranted. They won that game at about 28-3 in the fourth quarter, and they just let some things go where they let some drives that probably shouldn't have been so extended, especially that one where FSU converted 3 straight fourth downs. That wasn't the greatest showing from the defense, but at that point the game was well in hand, and they just weren't like playing as well as they should have. The offensive play calling kind of just diminished towards the end of the fourth quarter, and that whole game though, wrapping that up was good enough for them to move back to the number 2 spot. So I'm glad that that also figured itself out, because I would definitely had my doubts. I wouldn't have been mad if Oregon was number 2, but I'm glad that Miami's back up there.
I don't think it would make any sense. I mean, we were gonna hold this till later, so I won't say everything, but I would have thought it's ridiculous to have Oregon ahead of Miami. It just doesn't make any sense. That Penn State win, I'm not usually one to just immediately like flip what a win means the week after, but that Penn State loss was so bad. I think Oregon has a good road win against Penn State, but that's kind of where that stops. And then if you compare it to what Miami has done, it's not the same. It's not the same. We'll get into that a little bit later. We'll talk about that later. I'm glad it figured itself out. Also, by the way, Miami's on a bye, so Oregon's just going to jump them if they beat Indiana. It's just all about week to week, making sure that we get the rankings right, and that's what's most important. Even though Oregon is going to jump up to number 2 probably, because I think they're going to beat Indiana. The last couple of things, I guess, Texas Tech took care of business, and they look to be the top team in the Big 12 because Iowa State went down. And the SEC it's kind of wide open right now. I'll throw the Big 12 at you right now. Texas Tech or the field?
Texas Tech. I think that defense looks really, really good. That offense is doing like not exactly replicating what the defense is doing, but I just don't see a world in which Texas Tech doesn't take the rest of the Big 12. Like Arizona State already has a loss against a Mississippi State team that is like probably in the middle of the conference in the SEC, and then Iowa State losing this weekend was really bad for them. I know they like that game was projected to be close, but if they were going to be competitive, they need to beat Cincinnati, and they couldn't do it. So I think Texas Tech is the clear favorite at this point, and then everybody else. There's a case to be made for teams like BYU and all the other 2 teams that I mentioned, Iowa State and Arizona State. But I think that Texas Tech looks really, really good right now, and they've been running it up against the opponents that they faced so far.
Arizona State sneakily coming back into the rankings and going up further as teams drop. It's great to see my preseason Big 12 conference championship pick and playoff team, I think, too. And Sam Leavitt, dark horse Heisman. So I don't think that they're that good anymore, but I did at one point in this year.
Let's pick automatic playoff.
Let's go. Okay. Let's go. And let's not dwell on that. We've made some bad picks. SEC. It's kind of wide open. Top teams are Ole Miss, Texas A&M. Is that how it's going to end?
I don't see a world in which Ole Miss and Texas A&M are the top 2 teams in the SEC. I think that Alabama fights back at some point. Georgia should go on a run here. I watched a lot of Texas A&M almost begrudgingly last year. I saw a lot of Marcel Reed, especially in that like Notre Dame game, that Texas game towards the end of the season where they could have made it to the SEC championship had they beat Texas. I just I'm not super confident in Marcel Reed to go out and win me big SEC football games. Like, I know I mean, however you feel about Auburn, like that was probably a pretty good win, but against the top teams in the SEC, Marcel Reed, it just feels like is a slight step below. And I think you'll see that in some of these games. Like, they didn't have any offense towards the end of the season. I understand Texas defense is like one of the best in the nation, but, or if not the best in the nation, especially last year, but I just didn't see enough. And I feel like he's improved, but not drastically enough where I think that he's going to go out and win the SEC this year. Those defenses in that big conference, specifically the SEC, is too good. And I understand they have two of the best receivers in the nation too. I'm just not super confident, and we'll see. Don't get me wrong, they're one of the best teams in the nation, and could they still be in the college football playoff without winning the SEC? For sure, but I'm not confident in Texas A&M, and then Ole Miss. I definitely could be lower on them. I think that LSU win doesn't mean as much as people are making out to be, and at some point they'll run into a brick wall, and I think it starts shuffling back down to Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia, somewhere at the top there.
Yeah, I like
and
Texas
Tennessee
A&M.
and Tennessee.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, Tennessee too. I'm glad you mentioned though. I think that's as far as it goes. I'm not taking Missouri or Vanderbilt seriously right now as far as the SEC is concerned. I think my pick would be Alabama, but I got respect for Texas A&M because I think they're better than Ole Miss. Oklahoma is another team we definitely got to mention here as well, but with Mateer out like for however long that is, and they get Texas this upcoming week, that could get a little bit funky, especially if they start dropping a game or two in their quest to the SEC championship game. Also, the Auburn win, in my opinion, I don't like it because of the missed call by the refs with that touchdown play. And then Michigan, I think, is really not that good. So I don't have that win being all that great either for them. So it's like I question the ceiling a little bit with them. So I think if they run into some of the better teams in the SEC, I don't think they'll be able to pull it out even with Mateer. So I think that's a little bit tough for them. I would say Alabama is actually my pick to win the SEC the rest of the way. Let's go into the Dolphins. If you've been hanging around, we didn't have them as our biggest losers because we were going to talk about them at this moment. The Dolphins just blew a lead to the Carolina Panthers. Neither of us are very high on the Panthers. This was a bad look, but Rico Dowdle had a career-defining game. Just initial thoughts from the Dolphins' perspective, though.
It's over. The season is over. Go ahead and wrap it up. Mike McDaniel's quote said today that the owner was really frustrated with this loss. Yeah, everyone's frustrated with this loss, dude. You're gone. You're gone. So is Greer, dude. This whole organization. I've been alive for 20 years now. I haven't even sniffed a playoff win, dude. It's been so bad for such an extended period of time. Tua has still 3 years left on his contract or some crazy stuff like that. It's like top 10 in total amount of money on his contract. Like we can't get Tua out of here. So just there needs to be a reshuffling across the board. The Dolphins look absolutely atrocious. And it's so sad because there are glimpses of what this team could look like in the first quarter and a half. We're up 17-0. The offense had scored in like each of their first 2 drives, something like that. They had 2 touchdowns, a field goal. It felt like there could be something there, and it was against the Panthers. So it probably wasn't anything, but the fact that they weren't able to keep a 17-point lead versus the Panthers, and then when things got going, they were finally able to kind of tie it. They were able to tie it up with Jalen Waddle, that Alabama connection once again showing itself in the NFL. And then the defense just lets them go right back down the field. And there we have it. That's the story of the Miami Dolphins in 2025. I can't be bothered to keep on investing in this team anymore. Like, this was definitely the breaking point. If we can't beat the Carolina Panthers, it's time to let the season go, unfortunately.
Bryce Young's like the clutchest player I think I've ever seen on an awful team, because no matter what, even if they're down 35-3 in the fourth quarter, they're going to tack on some touchdowns. Great in garbage time. And if the game is relatively close, they might actually win it, like just at the end of the game, or they'll definitely compete. And then everybody might actually say, well, they'll give Bryce Young another few more weeks to figure it out. That's the way that I look at it for the Panthers team. And that's how low I am on the Panthers. And that's why this is such a bad loss for the Dolphins. McDaniel won't make it to the end of the year. We will, I actually do think, see Quinn Ewers start a game at some point this season. I don't think it'll have to do with Tua getting injured or anything like that. I just think that they're going to want to see what they have in-house with this squad, and that's where they are. This division now, with the Bills being at the top, the Patriots looking like maybe they're potentially turning a corner, is really unfortunate for the Dolphins. They can hang around down there with the Jets for the foreseeable future, but they're going to have to, it's a full rebuild now. It's one of those things, we talked about it after the Colts game, where if that sort of play continues, it's going to be goodbye head coach, goodbye quarterback. I know you mentioned Tua's contract. I mean, they might have to figure something out with that, or at least he won't start. So it just, he's not the future maybe in that case. I'm not blaming it this game on Tua though. Like, it's not, that wasn't really exactly why they lost. It's just an implosion on all aspects. But and Rico Dowdle had 200 yards. I mean, sometimes if there is an opposing player that has an amazing game, it's not just on the opposing defense or what have you. It's also, hey, he had the game of his life. They leaned on him like the entire game. So I'll give him a little bit of credit. But yeah, awful loss for the Dolphins. Total reset at some point this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't be bothered with this isn't the Tua isn't it's not his fault thing anymore though, because watching that game, it was his fault. It was his goddamn fault because we couldn't move the ball past the first quarter. It was actually so bad to watch. Like every single drive, it felt like we were going nowhere. They were just kicking it back to the Panthers, and then they weren't going anywhere. And it was just back and forth of two terrible teams doing what they do best. Like it was actually absurd to watch. Like after we were feeding Darren Waller, we were feeding Jalen Waddle, and then he just couldn't complete a pass. We had like 20 rushing yards going into the fourth quarter. So Devon A-Chain, where are you at, bro? And just in general, this team is just this offense is just so bad. Like every single drive, it's not even that they weren't putting points on the board after scoring 17. It's that they weren't moving the ball at all. Like they were just staying so stagnant. It was 3 and out after 3 and out. We got a first down and punted it back. It was like it made it so frustrating to watch that you just knew the Panthers were going to come back. If you're watching that game closely, like they just kept on giving the Panthers opportunity after opportunity. And it's like, dude, I know they're the Panthers. I know they're a terrible team as well, but they were going to finally score some points. And then they went down and they made it 17-7. And then they were only down 1 score going into halftime. It's like, oh, this game, like it's time to wake up and play some real football. And they couldn't do it.
Yeah, I guess I just meant maybe that like it wasn't all on Tua, but I get what you mean. That was just an awful game for the Dolphins. I don't mean to be laughing, but
Yeah,
man,
sorry.
that's rough. That's worst case scenario, I would say. Miami beat FSU 28-22, but they were up 28-3 at one point. The score did not indicate how dominant Miami was for this game. They move up to number 2. They jump Oregon. Maybe that changes in the following week. What are we thinking from Miami's perspective and the rest of the season?
Yeah, first of all, I want to give my props to Malachi Tony, Freshman of the Year. I know that there are some rumblings around a lot of other people, but in my personal opinion, when you're able to go into your absolute rival stadium, right? Drop 7 catches, 107 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That is an all-time performance, especially for a true freshman. That is not just a true freshman. He is a reclassified true freshman. He came into this season as a 17-year-old. He just 17, Ryan Williams, shout out. Dude, he just recently, which I know Ryan Williams put up even better numbers against a Georgia team last year, so I understand how this looks. But Ryan Williams is still a great player, and Malachi Tony deserves his flowers because he had a performance for not the ages, but he had a really, really good game. And just in general, this offense looked to be clicking the whole game. There wasn't a drive where I really felt like awfully about, to like at least for the first three quarters and some change. Carson Beck looks really good. He was on it the whole game, and that defense, it is just so refreshing to watch a defense that can actually play defense, because up until the end of that fourth quarter and like maybe from like 10 minutes on, that defense was absolutely stagnant. They had Thomas Castellano looking like his head just was like on a swivel the whole game. Like it had to be, because like he had 2 pretty bad interceptions, and then he wasn't able to do his thing where he gets out of the pocket and runs a lot. Like the whole plan was structured around the way he plays football, and they did a really good job of that. Ruben Bain didn't have as big of an impact as you would have liked to have seen in the first half. He had 2 like pretty like whatever penalties. that were just unnecessary. And like he didn't have that like Heisman winning like performance that he could have like made a statement with in this game. But still, Akeem Mesidor had a really good game. That secondary played really well, and just in general, it was a pretty dominant performance from the Canes. Even though it looks a lot closer on paper, only 6-point loss, but this game really ended at 28-3.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate. If we look back at this game, 5 weeks from now, I'm hoping people don't forget that this Miami team controlled that entire game. Just a couple, late stuff at the end there from Florida State just made it look a little bit closer. But this was a very, very impressive performance for Miami. Malachi Tony, you're so right. I remember in this, like right around springtime, we were thinking, man, they got all of these transfer wide receivers. It's going to be a whole new looking room, ton of talent. And then he just goes off in the spring game, and then you just hear small rumblings, and then you see it in the Notre Dame game, and it's like, he's legit. He is legit. I hope he's a career Hurricane. I don't really see there being a situation where he does leave. But yeah, awesome. 29 receptions, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns to the first 5 games of the year. That's great stuff. This Miami offense looks like it's really good. If Carson Beck is not committing turnovers, this is one of the best offenses in the nation, bar none. And then if this defense, which isn't really very totally reliant on turnovers, even though they forced 3 against Florida State, if this defense holds like they're playing right now, this team could beat anybody in the country. Absolutely. They can, and I'm totally willing to say that they could beat Ohio State. I'm totally willing to say they could beat Oregon. I actually think it's those 3 top teams and then a little bit of a distance from the next batch of teams. And I think Miami has a serious case just right now with what we've seen on the field as being the most impressive team so far this year, especially since, Ohio State's resume kind of has taken a little bit of a hit with Texas falling out of the rankings, and same thing for Oregon. This Miami team, let's move this conversation into how good they could be towards the rest of the country and going forward in the ACC. I just wanted to make this point really quick before I toss it back to you. They have beaten Notre Dame, and say what you want about Notre Dame, but that offense looks really good, and their worst game was against Miami, and they're like they're number 16 in the nation right now. Say what you want if that's too high. They're ranked currently. Florida State still ranked after that loss. They beat Alabama. I'm not using the transitive property here for Miami to being better than Bama, but that's an impressive ranked win. That's why they're still in the top 25. USF is now back in the top 25. We were expecting it to happen. That could be the G6 representative in the college football playoff. Memphis is right there.
G5.
No, Pac-12 is considered G6, but yeah.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
I found that out the other day, technically per rules, but yeah, that could be the representative in the college football playoff, and they handled that game. Also, the Florida win looks a little bit better than it did the other week since they just beat Texas. I love what they've put out on the field. I think it's the best of any team in the nation right now, and I'm not willing to sit here and say they're going to be the definitive national champions. I'm not saying that. This team feels like a lock for the ACC championship game. Oh man, college football is so crazy, but I want to say that they're going to go undefeated too in the regular season. And I think they're going to rattle off a couple wins in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think I want to go back to something that you said of them having the best resume of any team right now. I think that's pretty easily. As of right now, they have 3, just not even where they started ranked. They have 3 ranked wins that are all pretty decent teams. Like you mentioned, USF could be the group of 5 representative. And like you also mentioned, Memphis also looks really good. Tulane could have some say in that as well. Just that whole American Athletic Conference looks pretty decent. But still, FSU, USF, Notre Dame, 3 teams that genuinely had their worst game against Miami, because Miami looks to be that team that is just a notch above some of the rest of the competition. And I think they are genuinely in that conversation of Oregon and Ohio State, and if not in that conversation, leading that conversation. Because like you mentioned, the Ohio State resume doesn't look as good now that Texas isn't as good as they were before. And then Oregon, that win, obviously they got Penn State's best shot, right? UCLA was a little bit of a come down game. So Penn State is not as bad as UCLA by any means, but still that win loses a little bit of its luster because of the fact that Penn State isn't their only loss isn't to Oregon, and now it's to one of the worst teams in all of Power 4 schools. I think in general, Miami has the best resume of any team at this current moment, and they've done it in all facets of the game. There isn't you're not looking at offense or defense and being we want more from this. both look really good. And we haven't seen a game where they've had to overcome a lot, especially from like turnovers, from the perspective of turnovers or anything like that. But even if they do, I think that this defense is good enough where they can hold and like bend but not break. And if Carson Beck can just have an average game at the very least, that running game and that offensive line can carry you to like wins against the majority of teams in the FBS at this point. Mark Fletcher, Shamar Brown, Jordan Lyle, that whole backfield looks really good. The receivers that they have on the team, CJ Daniels, we didn't even mention his name. He is one of the best receivers. He transferred from LSU and before that Liberty. He looks really good, and he had 2 touchdowns in this game. You can stack up that receiving room, maybe not with anybody in the country. That Ohio State one with Garnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith looks really good, but still that receiving core looks a lot better than it did when you were hearing all these things about how they lost 5 of their 6 top pass catchers coming into the season. Like, they have guys on that receiving room, they have the quarterback, they have the running back room, and this year they have the defense. So it's really exciting to be a Miami Hurricanes fan, and you'll definitely see more of them going forward. I think that your assessment of them at least being in the ACC championship game is 100% accurate, and predicting any team to run to the schedule in college football is extremely tough because on any given weekend, one team can beat another one. But if there's anyone that can do it, put Miami right there with any other team.
I think we said it all. Do you have a best moment of the weekend, perhaps? Anything that caught your eye that we didn't talk about, that we didn't mention at all today? I'm trying to think. I'm really interested in what LeBron's going to do here. Whatever this is about. I feel like it's going to be slightly disappointing, but if he announces his retirement tour, I think I'm ready for it, like I'm ready to see it. He's going to get gifts everywhere. I think that was my favorite moment. It came out today, but I'm interested to see what happens. I hope it's not disappointing. It might be slightly disappointing, but if it's the retirement tour, I'm looking forward to it.
The announcement part 2, Rip Braun, bro. Rip Braun.
Well, he's still alive. Yeah.
Rip Braun's career, bro. Rip Braun's career.
Do you think they would win the championship in his last year? If they won the chip, do you think he would retire?
He's going to retire either way, but if they won the chip, he'd definitely go on a high note.
How confident are you to say that this is going to be him announcing his retirement tour?
I probably like 80-20. I think that he could do a thing where he'd be like, next year is the year where I'm leaving, bro. He's just like,
that would be so bad.
He'd give us a 1-year note. I could see it.
He would give us a 2-year notice, because you don't think if he announces that they're not going to do give him gifts like in this upcoming year. Like, they definitely will. First player ever to do a 2-year retirement tour.
Yeah, imagine they're just like, we're only going to play you twice next year, so we want to give you the gift in advance, bro. Glaze you some more next time.
I definitely think it could happen. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the Big Little Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. I'll see you guys next time.